All right, we are live. So I'm going to switch my screen here to Revit. And let's pick it up from where we left last time. We were in the middle of creating a project. I opened the wrong Revit. 2021. And let's see, we created assembles. I taught you how to create walls from scratch, the different methods of creating walls, and how the different components inside our wall assemble works. And we look at the type properties of wall and understand what are the different components in a wall assemble. We created a new wall from scratch, and I show you, how in every layer of material we need to assign function. Function is associated with a priority number, and a priority number indicates Revit way of understand how the different layers connect in a wall intersection condition. And then we associate a layer with a material. And the material, it's I'll show you a little bit of the material library, how we can assign different hatches to projection and cut conditions. And then I needed to associate a thickness, and then indicate whether the layer was part of a core or not. And so we save, we also created new levels. A level is a work plane that defines the top of a floor plan. There's a correlation between a level and the view. When a level has this blue color, this dark blue color, it's a visual indication that there is a level associated with a view. That means when it's blue. But when we copy a level using the copy command, then the level becomes this black color. And when a level is black, that means it's just a reference level. There is no correlate, there's no view associated with that. And sometimes that's desirable. For example, when we're trying to define the level of an intermediate landing, for example, or when we're trying to define a level of a parapet or the top of a foundation, those levels don't necessarily need to have a representation of a view. And the best way to create those is just create a simple copy. All right, and so we created 6 different levels, 15 feet apart. I also show you that levels now in Revit 2021 and 2022 are now visible in 3D. Prior to those versions, you can only see them in projection. And in a 3D view, you can actually select the levels in order to understand the full extent of the projection. This is the work plane, and the projection of the work plane in the different elevation generates the projection. So this is a projection. I'm going to tile this. I'm going to close the west elevation. And when you select a level and you look at those grips, those white grips in the 3D, those are the equivalents of the grips you will see in the projection view. And if I stretch that white circle toward the left or to the right, what I'm technically doing is changing the size of the work plane. That's what those grips are meant to do. All right, so Levels, it's fundamental. It's one of the first few steps in the modeling process because you need to create your working areas and your views. Once you create a view, once you create a 3D view, then and the levels, then we can start creating grids. Grids indicate the location of a structural elements like columns and beams and face of wall sometimes. And grids is something that we can create under the architectural tab or the structural tab. And you can start the command of grids in the upper right side here where it says grids. And that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to go over grids, columns, multi-story columns. We're going to do a floor. And then we're going to start creating a 3-story, a 4-story building with a roof level and an underground parking. So let's start. I'm going to modify. I'm going to close. No, I'm just going to leave level 1 on. I'm going to work on level 1. So open level 1. And under the architectural tab, navigate to the grid command in the datum panel. And we're gonna start creating some grids. So every time we start a command in Revit, you're going to see a new tab that appears. And commands trigger the creation of something that's called the contextual tab. Contextual tab. And the contextual tab, it's specific for different commands. And the contextual tab display information about methods of creating that object. And it always have modified methods to change that object. So, for example, everything you see here under the draw panel, oops. These are methods to edit, methods to create that object. And these methods to create are specific to the grid object. In addition, you are going to see these modifiers, which are methods to edit that object, methods to edit that element. In this case, is the grid. And so, and there are elements there are methods that are very specific to the object we are creating. And sometimes it's hard for us to remember where everything is in. I'll give you an example. For example, you don't have to do this. This is just so that you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm going to create a wall. And then when I select this wall in 3D space, notice how immediately Revit creates or display for me a contextual tab for walls. Contextual tab for walls. And this contextual tab display information on how you change the wall, method of editing the wall. For example, there's a subcommand here that is called attach top base. And there's another one called detach top base. So this command is specific to the walls, but it's only going to become available to you when you select the wall. So when you deselect the object and you're trying to find where is the attached walls, and you're not going to find it anywhere in the tabs. You might scroll through all the commands. You're never going to find that command because it's a contextual tab. It only appears when you select the wall. And so that's the part of the muscle memory we have to develop with when we learn Revit, is that there are commands that are contextualized to a specific object. And they're not going to be visible to us unless we select or edit that object. And so when we select a grid, notice also that there is a way to modify and create levels. This is the contextual tab, and the contextual tab disappear after you deselect an object. So I click escape, and now the contextual tab is gone. I'm going to delete this wall. So that was just an example. And so when we create a level or a grid, we are presented with a contextual tab, method of creating the element, and method to modifying that element. So those are part of the contextual tab. And the contextual tab, I don't know if you can see clearly, but this is like a green overlay in the tabs. And that's a visual clue that you are in a contextual tab. So these are the different methods of creating a grid. You can create a grid by 2 points. You can create arcs. You can create a start, medium, end, a start, end radius. Or you can create a grid by picking another object. Yeah. So the first click in the creation of a grid, it's always the end of the grid, and the second click brings the bubble. So if you want the bubbles to be on the top of your drawing, just start from the bottom up. If you want the bubbles to appear on the right side, start the command from the left to the right. So I'm going to create my first grid here, and it doesn't matter the size. And notice that as I create a grid, grids are automatically extended across all the levels existing in the project. And so this level is going to be visible in each and every floor plan in the project. I'm going to open, this is level 1, but if I open the roof level, notice how the roof level also display grid number 1, because the grids are displayed across all the levels that are created in the moment of the level, at the moment of the creation. And so these are the different levels. The grid is also visible in the projection view in the south elevation, but notice it's not visible in 3D. In Revit 2021, grids do not display in 3D views. In Revit 2022, the next version, this year version, that is a new feature. You can enable or disable the 3D view ability to display 3D grids. So that's we're not working in 2022, but that is something new you should know. The other thing you should know is that when we create an object, Revit automatically gives them the number 1. And we can override that first entry or the default entry by just changing the value of that element. So if I want this to be grid number A, just type on top of it. You can just click on it, type A. And Revit is good at remembering. Remember I told you? So now, because I override the default value, the next time I create a grid, the nomenclature is going to be grid number B or grid B. Let's do another one. Let's do another grid, maybe 30 feet away from grid A. And one way you can do to create grids easily is use these temporary dimensions. Temporary dimensions are extensions to endpoints or a specific values of their extensions. They are dimensional constraints to the extension of an endpoint of an object. And for example, if I want this to be 30 foot away from this endpoint, all you need to do is navigate to the end of here and then scroll to the right. And when you hit to 30, that's where you do your fit click and then snap 90 degrees. And that's going to be your B. And there you go. Escape to cancel. Give me a second. I think I have a mess here I need to clean. I left my water spill over. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right, so we have another grid 30 foot away. Let me show you how we can manipulate the location of objects in Revit using temporary dimensions. I think I mentioned this in the last class. When we were working in AutoCAD, the way it was designed is that we invoke or we call out a command, and then we select the objects and do things with that command. In Revit, it's object-based editing. And what that means is that you need to select the object in order to do something about the object. So instead of say, move the mouse, you first pick the mouse and then you move it. And so to move an object, you select the object and then the temporary dimension will give you ways of changing the location of that object. So if I want that to be 25 feet, just click on the temporary dimension and override the location. You're not going to be able to execute it otherwise. So you select the object and then you move that object. If I need to move the other grid, escape, or click the white space and select this grid and move it. So you always move the object you select. All right, let's create another grid. And this time I'm gonna show you how to.
Cesar, can I ask you something?
Yes.
When I select this grid, I don't have temporary dimensions.
Do you have two grids?
No, first one. Yes, I don't have temporary dimensions.
Are you in level 1?
Yes.
And do you have the grid B?
Not yet. I tried to create grid B, but when I click, I don't have dimensions.
Let's do it again. I'm going to create grid number C. Check it out.
Okay.
You go to the grid, and then you hover over the endpoint of this grid, and then you're going to see the temporary dimension showing up. But you need to stay sort of snapped to the bottom.
Okay.
And when you see 30, that's your next click. This is the first click, and then 90 degrees. And then when you see the other extension, that line, that's where you click again. And then you're going to see a temporary dimension showing up. Did that work, Dina?
Can you repeat again? Sorry.
I just showed you how to create a new grid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do another one.
Okay.
Go to architecture grid, snap towards the bottom, move towards the right. And when you arrive to the 30 feet, that's your first click.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you snap to the extension above, that's your other click, and then escape.
Okay.
So I have four grids created. I actually going to need 5 of them. I want to keep the grids contained inside the space of these elevations. So I'm going to move them to the left. So one way of doing that is just grab the 4 grids, and you see when I select an object, I can just drag it out. That's one way of moving elements. You select elements and then drag them. When you use this method, it's not very accurate. Like I'm just eyeballing the location. But if I really want to move something a very specific distance, then I have to use the move command. So let me show you what that is. Under the modify tab, there is this button. It looks like a plus sign. That is the move command. And the move command, it's one of the few exceptions when you when you select an object, then you hit the move command, and it's going to create this grid or this boundary around the object. When you move an object, Revit presents you also with these options. You can move elements in a constrained mode. Or you can create multiple moves. If you enable constraint, this is the equivalent of F8 in AutoCAD. You know, you just move an element in an orthogonal direction, either 90 degrees or 0 degrees. So again, select the object, hit the move command, and I'm going to constrain it. I want to make sure that this grid is constrained 90 degrees, 0 degrees orthogonal. And then the way move works is that you pick a handle. This is the location of an object you want to use as a handle. The handle could be any point in this space. It could be a point on the element. I'm going to pick a point in the grid. That's the handle. And then you move the object. And when you move the object, notice there is a temporary dimension. And you can just type on the fly the distance. So I want to move that object, let's say 1 feet. You just type 1 feet and then hit enter. And now that is at 29 feet from grid line 6. I'm going to repeat it again if you didn't follow along. Now I'm going to move all these elements in a single command. So what I do, I select all the objects and I do a crossing selection from the upper right side to the lower left side. So the boundary is dashed. That means that everything contained inside the boundary or overlapping the boundary is going to be part of the operation. Select the 4 grids and then use the move command. The shortcut is also MB. And so across all the objects, you can see this dash line. Revit remembers this checkbox that is constrained. So I can only move this orthogonally, 0 degrees or 90 degrees. The next step is to pick a handle. A handle is a point in the space or a point on top of another element. So I'm going to pick a point from at grid D. And then I'm going to move all these grids 2 feet east. So you just type on the fly 2, and that's it. You don't even have to type the feet. Revit is going to understand that this is 2 feet, and then hit enter. And I just move all these 4 grids towards the east, 2 units. Straightforward, right? Move command. All right, I'm going to add another one, another grid. It's grid E, 20 foot away. So I'm going to select it. Now I'm going to show you how copy works. Copy is this command here, and the copy. The shortcut of copy is CC or CO. And you can type this on the fly. Just make sure that you type it correctly. You're not going to see anywhere where those shortcuts are being typed. So you have to trust your typing abilities. All right, so to copy a grid, you just select the grid. I remember it's object-based. Right? You select the object. And then either just click on the copy command, and then Revit creates a boundary around the objects, and it works the same as move. Pick a handle on the objects, move the objects towards the right. To be precise, just type on the fly 30. That's 30 feet on the east side. Hit enter, and that creates another grid. So now I have 5 grids. That's what I wanted. And make sure all the grids are contained inside the space of the exterior elevation, right? So I'm going to move this a little bit to the right. And now I have 5 grids, and they appear in all the elevations where it's intersecting. Yeah. All right, let's create now grids, horizontal grids from 1 to 5. And we are going to, again, go back to architectural tab, hit the grid command. And then remember, the second click carries the bubble. So if you want the bubbles aligned or to display on the left side, your first click has to be on the right side. So my first click is going to be towards the lower right corner. And then my second click brings it here, orthogonal. Make sure it's 180 degrees. And because it's the next in the sequence, Revit gives them the name of F. I'm going to change the value. You can change the value by just typing on top of it. You can also change the value if you select the grid and you look at the identity data in the properties. I'm going to change it and change it to grid 1. And I'm going to create 5 grids horizontally, but I'm going to use a different method. I'm going to use the pick line tool. And we used the pick line tool when we created the levels in the last class. It works very similar. So you go to the architecture tab, grids, and then in the methods under the draw tools, there's an icon that has an arrow with a green line. This is the pick line tool method. And it will create a new object based on the reference element that you picked on the view. I need to indicate what offset is available. So I'm going to do this 30 feet on the 30 feet away. And the same way we did levels, just approach your mouse towards the grid, and then you're going to see the preview. And this is a little subtle because the preview could be above grid 1 or it could be below level 1. You need to watch exactly where the preview is. So if you approach the element from the top down, you're going to see the preview on the north side. If you approach it from the south, then you're going to see the preview in the lower side. So it's important that after you click the command, you indicate the offset, and then look at the offset in the view, and then you hit the click. And I'm going to create the 5 grids in a single step. So that's grid 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to escape to cancel. The commands remain active until you cancel them. And notice how grid A to E is not intersecting my last grid. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to select any of the grids, grab the white grip at the end of the grid, click stretch it. And And now your grids are all intersecting. This elevation marker and the view associated with that, I'm going to use a window selection to move it away from the drafting area. I'm going to select this and just drag it out. All right, easier, right? These are, if I open any other level, if I open the roof level, notice how the grids are transferred across all the levels that were existing in the project. I'm going to do this, but you don't have to do it. I'm just going to create a new level, maybe 15 foot above the parapet. And when I open the level 7 that's on the screen, which one? Yeah, when I open level 7, which is right here, notice that I don't see any grid. You know why, right? So the reason is because the grids are not intersecting the level. So when I raise them up and open level 7, then now they appear. You don't have to do this. I'm going to undo. This is just to raise a point about it. Tile. Okay, so I have a floor plan with the grids. I have the levels ready. I think I'm ready to start building my columns. Any question about grids and levels? Let me show you. Grids and levels share very similar properties. When you select a grid, you can turn the bubble on and off. If two grids are really close to each other, you can click this break line and add an elbow. To heal them back to the previous location, you just drag the grips and align them. You're going to feel that they snap and then they're going to heal. It has this little lock that is a visual clue that these have an alignment constraint. If you grab the grip from the end point, you will move all the locked relationships in a single step. And then if anybody has a question? If I switch this 3D view to a 2D view, what I'm actually doing is creating a view-specific projection of the grid. And what that means is that I can stretch the endpoint of this grid, and only for level 1, this grid is going to display in a different location. Notice how the work plane, which is the hollow circle, still telling you that the work plane it's this location, but for this particular view, the projection of the grid, it's a little shorter, and that's why it's called 2D, because it's 2D specific. That's what it means. It's only for level 1. If I create another view, this doesn't impact level 2. For example, in level 2, the grid is still in the original location, but for this particular view, it's a view specific change. To heal this back to a 3D, all you need to do is grab the grip of the grid and drop it on top of the white circle, and that switch it to a 3D view. It should be called 3D coordinated. Let's call it that way, 3D coordinated. All right, so we have a building. I'm going to sketch in on top of it what is that we are going to do. So this is going to be a building. This is going to be the floor plate. It's going to be something like that. And this is going to be an underground parking with an entry point here. And it's going to have an exit from here. No, actually, the entry is from here and the exit is from here. So it's going to go this way. So this is a slope. And this is another slope right here. So we're going to learn how to do slope floors. And we're going to put some columns, concrete columns. And then this is going to create some sort of platform. And on top of that platform, we will place some wood structure for the upper levels. Okay, so let's talk about families before going to the next thing. I'm going to open my PowerPoint here. And this is a slide I showed you last time. When we load families in Revit project, the families are organized in the family browser by category. And the family browser, it's also organized in 3 tiers of information. The first tier discloses what the category is. The second one discloses what is the name of the family. And the third one discloses what is the type. When you load a family, it's loaded into the family browser, but it's not living in the project until you actually place it. You can place objects using the command. For example, you can use the command door and place a door, or you can just drag and drop. You can grab one of the type and drop it on the project. The extension of the objects of the families are RFA, .rfa. And those are component families that are loaded from a centralized repository of content. Let me talk about families. We're gonna create columns, and a column is a loadable family. And a low-level family is one that you bring from a library of components. So the first class, when we were looking at the options, you go to the File tab, and then you look at options. This is the option dialog box. If you click under the file location, you're going to see that under the places, where it says here places, Revit disclosed the default location of the out-of-the-box library. So there's an imperial and there's a metric. This is a path. This is the path to your local library. This lives in every workstation. It ships with Revit. If you do not have this path, let me know. It's important that you have this path because if you're missing this library, we need to reinstall them. The other thing that's going to happen on your end, if you're working in a computer from your workstation at your office, is that you can customize and add additional libraries that are company specific. So if you click this plus sign, you can always add a new path using these 3 dots and connect your library to your own company library. So I guess GLP may have a component library living in a drive, and then you can just connect to that drive, remove the top ones, and then you can always, every time you load a family, it's going to be connected to that path. So I don't need this. This was just to show you how to create a new path. So I'm going to click this remove value to remove that row. But this is the path of the out-of-the-box library. I'm just gonna copy to show you how it looks like. So I open here a Windows, and you don't have to do this, but in Fire Explorer, if I type that address, what is it searching? I'm just gonna paste this. Okay, this is the out-of-the-box library, and it comes with folders. All of these are loadable families. You have columns, conduits, doors, electrical furniture. There's these are all the different out-of-the-box library. Let's look at furniture, for example, and notice how there's a TV stand, there's a flat TV screen, and there are tables, storage beds, etc. It's not enough, but it's a good start. There is also, if you open the structural columns, and then you go to steel, there is also in certain libraries components associated with a TXT file. So look at the C channel. The C channel column has an extension RFA, but right next to this file, there's another file with the same name, but with an extension TXT. This file that is sitting next to the RFI is called a type catalog. And type catalogs it's a dictionary of property values associated with a family when the family had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of types. I'm not going to show you how to create one from scratch, but when a family has too many variations, C channels, there are several dozens of different types. It's more economical for the operation of Revit to present to the users with selective options of what types they would need to bring. So rather than bringing the whole collection of all the different types living for the C channel, the user is presented with a user interface where you can cherry pick which of the types are the ones that you need. So that you have an idea, if I open this TXT file, these are all the C channels available in the market. Maybe not in the market, but out of the box. And these are the different values for the different parameters. The values indicate, things like the thickness, the height, the fillets values, the weight, etc. And so when we load columns, when you go insert, we're going to load a family. You go to insert. To load families, you go to the insert tab, and then you use the load family button. And when you load family, it automatically connects you to the English Imperial Library, because this is how Revit is. These are in the settings. In the options, I have this path as my first choice, and that's why I am presented with this folder structure. In your company, you could override this and say, I don't need the out of the box because my company has worked really hard with the components. I'm going to override it in the options, and then the folder structure presented to you is going to be the one that's living in your local network. And so I open the English Imperial, and then I'm going to navigate to the columns. And let's say this is architectural columns, for example. I'm going to bring a Doric column. This is how it looks like. You can see the preview here. And what happened with the family? The family is loaded, but it hasn't been placed. And so when you go to the families, and then you click under the columns branch, you'll see that the Doric column is right here. This is the category, this is the name of the family, and this is the name of the type. Now all you need to do is drag the type into the project and snap to a intersection. Now notice that this Doric column, it's only one, it's just one column. I'm going to change this to shaded to see how it looks like. This is one family. It's very architectural. But this is not the type of columns that I need for my project. And this was a column, it was a single type. So I'm going to delete it. So just select this and delete it because I don't need it. What I really need, it's structural columns that are concrete. This is going to be a building with one underground parking and then a platform on top where we have a wood structure. So so let's to load let's say the wood columns and then the concrete ones. So these are what I recommend if you have a sense of what are the systems that you're going to be using in the project, is load the families that you think are going to be critical for the modeling process. For now, I don't have wooden columns loaded. If you look at structural columns towards the end, all I have is two types of the W-shaped columns, but I can load wood columns. So I don't know if you have these options in your installation. Under the Insert tab, the latest, I think the version 2021.1 has something called Load Autodesk Family, and it has this little cloud next to it. The same out-of-the-box library that you get with the installation is now also available as a cloud option in an Autodesk server. So if you go to Insert and then you go Load Autodesk Family, Revit, it's going to present you with a technology preview. What that means is that in a couple of versions, it's going to be an official installation. And the nice thing about this is that it's simple. It gives you a preview. You don't get the preview out of the box. It has exactly the same families that you will get out of with the desktop installation. But over here, you can navigate to the structural columns. These are all the different column types. Here are my wood columns. And there are dimensional lumber, glulam, parallel, timber, etc. So the difference between these and the other is that these families are hosted in the cloud and the other families are hosted in my local workstation. I think the plan for Autodesk in the future is that to get rid of the local content and make everything available on the cloud. Let's pick the timber columns because those are heavy and hit load. And now this is the type catalog. Remember I was telling you about the type catalogs. These are the TXT files, the TXT information translated into a user interface that we can read, that we can relate to. And so instead of loading all the different types of timber available in the industry, you just cherry pick the ones that are relevant for your project. So I'm going to pick a 6x6 and maybe I pick an 8x8, and I'm doing is clicking the control key to select or deselect options in this type catalog. And then hit OK. Sorry, hit OK here. And then those two new types are now loaded under the structural columns in the project browser. So that's how we load content into Revit in preparation for the modeling process. Now,
sorry, Cesar,
mhm.
when I go to insert and load Autodesk family, nothing happened.
So two things, maybe you have access to internet there, right?
Yes.
This technology preview came with Revit 2021.1. So what's probably happening is that you don't have the incremental version. But you can do this. Go to the insert panel, then load family. Instead of the Autodesk Cloud family, go to the
yes.
And then navigate through the English Imperial.
Where?
English Imperial.
Okay.
And then go to structural columns.
Structural columns. Okay.
Then wood, and select the timber column.
Wood, timber column. Okay.
And you're gonna have exactly the same dialog box. So you use the 6x6.
Oh, okay.
And then the 8x8. Use the control key to select a specific value.
6x6 and 8x8.
Yeah.
Control. And say okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And now go to where?
That's it. You cut off.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So now we have our structural columns, and they are loaded into the family browser under the structural column category. And I think we're ready to just show you the process of loading columns. I also wanted to share with you what happened is the family is not there. What's happening if you're looking at a specific component that's not available to you? I think one of the sites that Autodesk endorses is BIM content. So under the insert tab, if you go to get Autodesk content, it opens a website. My bad. This get Autodesk content, it's a way to install content for other regions and in other units. Say, for example, you're working for a project in China and you need the Chinese version of the content. It's available here. It's going to install it in the same file path as the rest of the out-of-the-box components. This is also a way, if, for example, if you modify a family and you need to retrieve the original version, you can always download the original English, the United States Imperial Library. It's an executable file, and it will install it for you. That makes sense. Now, there are other resources for families. Let me bring that up for you here shortly. 1 second. These are some of the sites that I recommend. One is called BIM Objects. And you can just, I'm just gonna, if you wanna save this, you can, I'm gonna put it in the chat panel and you can just open it and you can favorite in your browser. BIM Object used to be the Autodesk library, but we couldn't, in the past, I mean, Autodesk couldn't keep up with working with manufacturer. We are not in the business of creating digital content. And so we sold the service, and now it's privately managed. But the content available here, it's free, but it's provided and created by manufacturers. So you can, in order to download objects, you have to log in, create your own repository. And the way they do money is that they charge the manufacturers for hosting the content here. So here you can search for anything. For example, try to search for cars or vehicles. Oh, look, there's an electrical vehicle charge station. Or if you want to have chairs. Chair. I need to reset this filter before I do that. Chair. I have 4,000 type of chairs, 285 brands. This is much more than what you will get with the out-of-the-box library. As anything, a lot of these families are suitable for like renderings and photorealistic. They have a lot of granular information. But the first thing you should do if you download this is to check the file size. Typical file size of a family for documentation should be less than 700 kilobytes. If any of these families exceed that size, it's better to understand how many times you're going to use it. If you're going to use this like hundreds of times inside a project, and ask yourself, what is the purpose of the thing I'm going to do? If the purpose is just to do seat arrangement in floor plan, maybe you don't need a family that is really high photorealistic. If your goal is to create a photorealistic rendering, maybe you do need that. But beware of what you download, basically, because the more granular a family, the higher impact in the file size it will have. So BIM object is my top recommendation for you guys. There's another one called BIM content. There's BIM object, and then there's also BIM content. And this is a little more fancy. I think this is for pay. I'm also going to copy and paste it in the chat panel. This is highly curated with manufacturers, but it's a little more high-end. So if you're in the business of doing, I don't know, like custom residential or high-end commercial, you could search for project here by manufacturers or by object keyword. Let's look at, let's say, lamps. Well, there aren't that many lamps. Oh, there are some like light fixtures. Let's see. Yeah, again, all of this will require you to register to download. And right now they provide content for Revit. They also provide for ArchiCAD, and they are per Revit version. All right, BIM content is another one. Another one, this is from the UK. It's the National BIM Library. So unlike the United States, we don't have a national body that regulates content standards for state projects, but the UK does. The UK has the National BIM Library. It's called the NBS National BIM Library. And it's all Imperial, but a lot of these manufacturers are UK based. Let me copy and paste it in the chat panel. But because it's a national resource, it's free. It's good content. It's well put together. It has a good quality assurance and quality control, and I like it. There's a lot of objects you won't find anywhere else. And let's see, the last one I want to mention, it's more like an open source content community base, and this is called the Revit. What's the name? Revit. Damn, I blanked out. Let me see if I have it here. Oh, this is another one. Sorry. This is the Beam Store. This company is in the business of selling content. Beam Store. But it's really cool content. It has really nice photorealistic textures. Like if your company is paying for doing a high photorealistic representation, this will be a nice place to search for textures, search for collections of objects, kitchens, bedrooms, living rooms. The living rooms are pretty cool. And just put them into a cart. Most of them are not that expensive. I mean, $2-3 per depending on the size and the complexity of the family. All right, so those are my resources. I have to come back with the other one, the community-based, well, Revit City, my bad. Revit City. Maybe I shouldn't mention it because Revit City, it's like a flea market. Anybody pays anything here. And it's poorly designed. This site has been hacked like hundreds of times. And like a flea market, you can find really good content, you can find really, really bad content. And the way to judge whether content is good or not, it's by opening it and see how the parameters work. See if it doesn't have any suspicious or dangerous databases or metadata. So somebody needs to review this content before you can use it. So again, you have to register. The content is organized by CSI. I'm going to search for Pocket Door, which Pocket Doors don't ship with Revit. And you're going to find several examples of Pocket Doors. Pick the one you want, download it, review it, make sure that A is less than 700K, B that it doesn't have all these foreign definitions, or C that it's not written in a language you don't understand. Because if you load a family created in Poland, you're going to read those parameters in Polish. And it's going to affect the way you schedule information as well. So use it with caution. That's what I'm saying. All right, so those are repositories of families. Let me post that in the chat panel, Revit City. That's the last one. And let's add content into our project. So we're going to add columns. We already added some columns, timber ones, but let's add some concrete. We go to Insert tab, Load Family, go to Structural Columns, then go to Concrete and select the concrete rectangular column. And you're going to see that under the rectangular, under the structural columns, you have these three different types. This doesn't trigger any type catalog. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an 18 by 24 column at each column intersection on level 1. And so to create a new column, you just go to the Architecture tab and hit the column command. The shortcut is also CL. And Revit is always going to remember the last type loaded into the project. And so that's why by default it goes to 12 by 18. You can, in the type selector, in this drop-down list, you can choose a different family type. I'm going to do the 18 by 24. And I'm just going to place it in one of the intersections. Notice how Revit immediately loves snapping columns to the green intersection. Now, I made a mistake here that I did not review the options bar. So I'm going to undo and redo and cancel again and undo. All right, let's do it again. Architecture column. The next thing I need to look at is the type, which is 18 by 24. And the other thing I need to look at is the method. There are different methods of creating a column. You can create a column by depth or by height. I'm going to create a column by height. And it could be parametrically associated with the level above. So I'm placing this on level 1. I want them to extend to level 2. Whatever level 2 is, that's going to be the height of the column. And I'm going to place it at the intersection of A and 5. And let's do one row. You can just keep placing them inside at the intersections and then hit escape.
Cesar,
Yeah.
when I go to architectural column, structural column, I don't see concrete rectangular column, but I see it in my project browser, but I don't see it from this command column. I see only structural and column architectural.
So when you hit the column, you should see the concrete rectangular column in the type selector. You don't see that here?
No, I don't see it here.
Did you load it?
Yes, concrete rectangular column. I see it in families.
So when it says search here, can you type under the search, just type concrete? And then that's going to narrow any, if it's what you're saying is true, if the family is loaded, then you're going to see.
I don't see this search.
It's right here. It's under the type selector. Or you can do this as well. Go to the project browser, select the 18 by 24.
Yes.
Drag it out.
Okay, this I can do. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why you don't have it. You don't see it in the project browser. You should see it. All right, so I place a column across column 5. Let's talk about how to. Architects usually don't do this, but if we need to tag a column, you can do it. Go to the Annotate tab, tag by category, hit one column, and it's going to tell you there's no tag for structural column. So I need to load a new tag. So go click yes. And in the family, in the list of components of the family library, I'm going to go into the annotations, English Imperial, annotations, then structural, and look for the concrete, the structural column tag, because it's going to look like that. Start from a column tag, and then hit open. And then now you'll be able to tag, annotate tag by category. And these tags, the column that it's 18 by 24, you can also click this grip in order to create an arm and an elbow. So I'm going to do it again if you fall behind. You need to load a structural tag. So you go to the Insert tab, Load Family. In the family, navigate to the top of the English Imperial Library, and go to the Annotations, Structural, and then scroll down and find the structural column tag and hit OK.
Okay.
And then after you load the family, then you can place a tag with the Annotate tag, Annotate tab, tag by category. And then you can move this and create an arm and an elbow. You can also load it. If you have access to the Autodesk Cloud family, you can also do it this way. This is easy because you can just, instead of navigating through the whole structure, you can look for the structural tag, structural column tag. Why doesn't do this? Maybe I have to go. I need to reset the filter. That's what it was. And then you go to Annotations, Structural. These are all the tags for structural. And then select, look for the structural column.
To the left, under do.
Structural, here is, and then
Down, yeah.
you select it and then hit load. It's the same, the same thing. All right, this is how we tag. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to show you that sometimes if you were a structural engineer, structural engineers tag columns per intersection of the grids. Like this will be column A5. And this will require me to edit the tag and change what parameter it reports. We're going to do it again in the future, but I'm going to do this very quickly. You edit the family of the tag. This tag, it's reporting information about parameters inside the column parameters. Right now, it's reporting a type name. So I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to associate now with column location mark. So what I'm doing is swapping the type of information that this is loading, or when loading to the project, override it. And now rather than reporting the size, it's reporting the column intersection. And if I change the column, say this was column H, this should automatically, there you go. I just needed to give a few seconds. It automatically, it's parametrically changing. There you go, B5. So I'm gonna undo because I didn't, this is just FYI. All right, so that's how we tag columns. Now, placing all these columns one by one is going to be a very tedious process. So rather than doing it one by one, let's do them in a single step. So what I'm going to do is let's select all the columns that I already placed, and I'm going to delete them. Now we're going to place columns in bulk. And to do that, you go into the structural tab, hit the column command, and in the type selector, make sure that this is pointing to the concrete rectangular column 18 by 24. What I'm going to do now, instead of doing it one by one,
Okay.
is to select this option called Add Grids. And this option will enable me to select all the grids in the project and place at the grid intersection an instance of a column. So hit Add Grids. Then I'm going to select a crossing selection. Crossing selection is from the right to the left. A crossing selection of all the grids. Make sure you pick them all. And notice the preview. There's a preview of how the columns are going to look like. If you hit the space bar right now, the columns are going to rotate 90 degrees in a single step. So space bar rotates all the instances.
Oh, okay.
And then you're going to hit the green checkbox that says finish, and then all the columns will be created in a single step. You don't have to do it one by one. And then the other thing is you can also tag all the columns at once. So under the annotate tab, you hit this thing called tag all. Rather than tag by category, select tag all. And in this dialog box, check the structural column tags and hit apply. And then hit OK. Right at the center of every tag, I have the tag. It didn't have an arm and an elbow. If I need the arm and an elbow, you can do it as well. I'm going to edit. I did undo, tag all. Structural column tags and hit a leader here, and maybe do it 1/4 of an inch rather than 1/2 inch or 1/8 of an inch. And orientation horizontal, then hit apply. Now here is the tag placed at 90 degrees.
Mhm.
All right, so that's how we placed columns. And if we switch to a 3D view, this is how it looks like. My columns are spanning. This is probably a mistake. My columns are spanning from level 1 to level 2. If I select level 2 and I erase it, you don't have to do this. All the columns follow because they are parametrically associated with level 2. All right, let's build very quickly a floor, a slab. So this level is the parking level, the underground parking. And I'm going to move my view to level 1. And I'm going to create a slab on grade that it's 6 inches in thickness and that it's 2 foot away from the grid intersections. So if you recall, my footprint was going to be something like this, right? And so I'm gonna create a floor that has that profile. All right, so the floor, it's the first time we did walls in the past. The wall is a system family, but now we're going to do floors, and a floor is also a system family. And the floor command is under the architectural tab under the floor tool. There's a floor tool here. So let me disable the preview. I don't like my tooltips. So I'm going to go to file options. All right, this is the floor command. All right, this is something new to you guys, for those who are new. When we create certain system families, Revit present me with something called sketch mode. A sketch mode is a temporary display of working lines that define the boundary of system families. When you're in sketch mode, you're only, first, you can only create sketch lines. That's the only thing you can do, sketch line. And the other thing, you can only get out of sketch mode if you hit the X, the red X, or the green check. So these two things right here. You have to click one of them in order to exit sketch mode. All right, in this mode, all you can do is sketch lines, and sketch lines are these purple lines that define the boundary of an object. And so I want to create the boundary of my ground level, or my ground floor, 2 feet away from the grid intersection. So I'm going to use the line tool, the first option here. And I'm going to give it an offset of 2 feet. So make sure you type in the offset cell the value of 2. And then I'm going to start creating my boundary in a clockwise direction. So I'm going to start from this green intersection. Notice how all I'm doing is picking green intersections. I'm going to go to the intersection of 3. Now here's another thing I want to show you, and these are the invisible snaps. When I am in the process of creating objects, I can force certain snaps to happen, and these are shortcuts. So let me show you the snaps. Snap is something you can type on the fly. So if you want to snap to intersection, just type on the fly SI. Another shortcut is SM. That is snap midpoint. Another one is SE, which will be endpoint. SP, perpendicular. SN, it's nearest. SQ is quarter. If you have a circle and you want to snap to the quarter of the circle, you can do that. But these are the main snaps. And as you create objects, you can just type on the fly either SI or SP or SM. You're going to use it all the time when you're creating a system of walls and you want to snap it to other reference plane. So in this example, I'm going to type SI to snap to grid number 3. So SI, and notice how SI immediately pick the intersection of 3 and grid A. So I'm going to go to this intersection, and I'm going to go to this intersection. Again, just type on the fly, SI. SI again. Sorry, from here, SI. If you hit escape, it's going to cancel. And I have, again, to create a line with an offset of 2 feet. SI. SI. What's happening here? Offsets of C. Yeah. Go here. And I'm just gonna trace it around. If you made a mistake, just hit undo and pick it up from when you left it. Remember, you can only get out of sketch mode if you hit the yellow, the red X, or the green checkbox. Okay, this is roughly the boundary of my floor. And there are a couple of things we need to know before we exit this. And these are the rules of sketch mode. Rules of sketch mode. First, all sketch lines need to be continuous, meaning there's no gap at the endpoint of each of them. And the second rule is no overlaps. Sketch lines cannot overlap on top of each other. So in my drawing, in my sketch, I have a big gap here. And if I try to exit, Revit gets angry. It says, you cannot exit because lines are intersecting. And here is the example where the lines are intersecting. Revit get angry because these lines are overlapping. So I need to fix this. I need to use the clean to corner or trim command. And this is going to create a clean corner at this end. And then if I click again, the green checkbox, Revit is still angry. It says lines needs to be in a closed loop. And it actually highlight for you in yellow or orange. What are the points in the sketch line that are not connecting? So you just have to click continue and then hit the trim to corner. Make sure that all the lines are in a single loop. They're not overlapping. And then hit the green checkbox. And I have another error. It says, you still have a gap here. Okay, my bad. And then you go back and clean this error. And once all the errors are fixed, you can click the green checkbox. And my floor is now created. This is the ground floor level. To edit, let's say you find out that you have this boundary incorrect. To edit a floor, you just select it and then hit edit boundary. This is going to take you back to sketch mode, and it's going to give you access to the sketch lines where you can change again. So edit boundary takes you back to sketch mode. Hit the green checkbox. It takes me back to the model. Now, when you edit the boundary, you must make sure that one of these is enabled in order to exit sketch mode. Because what happens if you forget about this? Then you're going to go to the architectural tab and everything is grayed out. You go to structure and everything is grayed out, and then you're going to panic, and then you're going to say, Cesar, what's happening? I don't see anything. Why everything is grayed out? Well, you are in sketch mode. And this condition is called trap in sketch mode. And the only way to get out of sketch mode, if you go back to the contextual tab and hit the green checkbox, and now you're released, you're back into the model. That makes sense? All right, this is the floor that we created. Let's see in 3D. This is how it looked like. And let's let's create a slope floor. And I think we're going to finish there. I'm going to open level 1 again. And my sloping floor is going to be a floor that is sloped from here to here, and it goes from here to there. So I'm going to create two different floors for each of them, but I'm going to repeat this twice because it's a little elaborate process. And if you want to see the process, then I'm going to cancel and do it, and you can do it again on yourself, or we can do it together. So first take, to do a slope floor, you enable the floor command, and then I'm going to create a rectangular floor. I use the rectangle tool, snap from this corner to this corner. If I hit my green checkbox, this is a flat floor. But what I want is a sloping floor. What I need to do is add to the sketch a slope arrow. The slope arrow is created using 2 lines. The first click, it's the midpoint of this line, and the second one is the midpoint of that line. Now, to make sure that my slope is correct, look at the properties of it. So select the arrow, look at the properties, and in the properties of the arrow, it tells you what is the level at the tail, this is the tail, and what is the level at the head. And so the level at the tail, it's level 1. And the level at head, it's level 2. So this ramp is going to go from level 1 to level 2. The tail is level 1, the head is level 2. Then you hit the green checkbox and look at this in 3D, and that is my sloping floor. So I'm going to do it for those who fall behind, and let's do it together again. So I'm doing this on level 1, and then go to the floor command. And in the draw tools, pick the rectangle. Snap to this to the rectangle corners. So my first snap is this existing floor. The second one is this other one. And then I'm going to place a slope arrow. So switch to the slope arrow method and create an arrow from the midpoint of the slope on one end to the opposite end. And then select the arrow and look at the sketch properties. You're going to see 2 parameters. One is called level at tail. Another one is called level at head. The tail and head, right? The head is the arrow. The level at tail, it's level 1. The level at head is level 2. And then hit the green checkbox. And now you have the slope created. The reason you see it this way is because this is the cut line. The cut line of any view is 4 feet above floor grade. If we want to show the entire floor, then we need to change the view properties. We're not going to do that now. But something I do want to show you is how you express slope annotation. So under the annotate tab, there is a spot slope annotation. Select the slope, and it gives you the height of a run. Spot slope. All right, let's do it. If you want to do yours on your own, I'm also going to do it myself. I'm going to create a floor that's sloping from this level at level 1 to level 2. Same process, architecture, floor, select a rectangle, snap to the corner, snap to the opposite corner, and then create a slope arrow. And then look at the properties of the arrow. The tail of the arrow, it's a floor 1. The head of the arrow, it's a level 2. Click the green checkbox. If you need to document the slope, go to annotate, spot slope. There you go. It's the same slope. Rise over run. And let's look at this in 3D. Here is my floor with my 2 slopes. And this is going to be the underground parking with an entry and an exit. Any question? All right, I think I have a few minutes to create the floor at the level 2. So rather than redrafting everything on level 2, all I'm going to do is copy the ground level and paste it on level 2. So Revit has a way to copy paste the same element, the same instances in the same location, but in a different elevation. So it's very simple. You just select the slab, copy to the clipboard. This is the copy command, the copy to clipboard command. This is the cut one. This is the copy. So don't confuse the copy to clipboard with the copy command. Those are 2 different things. Copy to clipboard is different from the copy geometry. This is the cut one. So copy to the clipboard, and then in the paste command that is right next to it, hit the drop down, and these are different methods of pasting from the clipboard. So I'm going to pick paste align to selected levels. And then you're going to be presented with a list of all the levels in the project. I'm going to pick level 2 and hit OK. And there you go. This is level 2 in the model. Then notice how the columns are sort of intersecting with the slab. And if we want to avoid that, we need to give the columns an offset. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to stop the class there and open for questions. So if I want the columns to merge with the concrete slab, what you can do is select all the columns in the project. So you select a column, right click. Well, let's find out what's the thickness of this first. The thickness of this floor, it's 12 inches. Well, that makes sense for the ground level, but for the upper level, that's probably too heavy. So I'm going to change it to a generic, no, the line weight concrete on metal deck. Actually, let's see if I have another generic. No, I only have generic 12 inches. Let me show you how to create a new type based on an existing one. This is a generic 12 inches, but I need one that it's generic 6 inches. And so you edit the type, duplicate it, give it a new name. I think we went through this process before for the walls. And then we change the parameter values. and the parameter values is 6 inches rather than 1 foot. Now I have a slab that is 6 inches in thickness, and to edit all the columns, select all the columns via right click. If you right click and select all instances in the entire project, these are all the columns in the project. And you can give it a top offset here of -6 inches. And those columns are going to stop right below the slab. There you go. Again, I'm going to repeat it if you fall behind. What I just did is first create a new floor based on an existing one. So edit the type, duplicate it, give it a new name. I call this generic 6 inches. Access the structure properties and change the thickness to 6 inches. Hit OK. I created a new type, a new family type. And now the thickness of this slab is 6 inches. And now I'm going to change all the columns. So select one of the column, then right click and select all instances in the entire project. This is going to pick all the columns created at this point. And in the instance properties, find the top offset value and change that top offset value to -6 inches. This is going to lower all the columns from level 2 to -6 inches. And I don't have those column intersections anymore. Alrighty. Notice another thing also in my sloping floor, how it's not as smooth. I mean, it's I need actually to fix this by accessing the properties of the slab. Like this slab is 12 inches, but it doesn't have the right starting point. So I'm going to edit this. I'm going to edit the boundary again. I'm going to select the arrow. And notice how it says height offset from tail is 1 feet. I need to change that to 0. I forgot to change that. Hit the green checkbox, and then that's going to make the slope work again. I'm going to do this again for the opposite one. So select the floor, edit the boundary, select the arrow, and change the height offset from tail to 0. Hit the green checkbox, and now I have a smooth transition. Okay, so it's 7:20. I think I covered what I needed for today. Next class, we will continue discussing a structural system, but we're going to build the upper floors with a wooden structure. So we're going to place some wood columns, some wood beams, wood systems of beams, and then after that, we're going to start focusing on the exterior curtain walls. We're going to do a nice commercial building from here on. So save this file. And we're going to pick it up from here next class. Again, if you have questions, stay over and ask your questions, or feel free to disengage. I am going to stop the recording right now. And yeah, I'll see you guys next Thursday. On Thursday, we're going to start again a 5-question test based on what we've seen so far. It's more like a refresher than a challenge for you guys. And then we will continue with the structural systems and curtain walls. All right, any question? All good? All right, so feel free to disengage unless you want to stay with me and have more time, more one-on-one time.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Cesar.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you Thursday.